Welcome. Let's get right into it. This lesson is all about breaking down the core concepts you absolutely need for your Global Challenges exam. We're going to focus on that tricky relationship between globalization and democracy and how it's kind of fallen apart.
So, are globalization and democracy a perfect match? Or is the relationship in a total crisis? For a long time, everyone thought they were natural allies, a perfect team. But lately, with the rise of populism, that whole idea has been put to the test.
Okay, so to really get a grip on the tension we're seeing today, we have to rewind a bit. We've got to look at how this alliance even started. And trust me, this historical background, it's a super crucial starting point for pretty much any exam question you'll get on this.
So for decades, it really seemed like these two were helping each other out. Right after World War II, you see economic globalization taking off at the same time democratic values are spreading. Then, later in the 20th century, you get these waves of new democracies popping up, and it's all tied in with countries opening up their economies. The thinking was pretty simple. Open markets lead to stable democracies. But today, that whole idea is being seriously challenged.
So what's the big disruptor here? What's challenging this belief that's been around for so long? Well, it's a force that has popped up as a direct reaction to the negative side of globalization, and that force is populism.
Okay, listen up, because for your exam, this is the definition you need to lock in. Populism is not just about being popular. It's a very specific political playbook. It's all about framing things as the good, ordinary people against the corrupt elite. And the really important part is that it often goes on the attack against the very rules of global economics and democratic systems.
It's absolutely crucial you get these two main features. First, there's the anti-elite talk, accusing leaders of selling out the country to benefit from global markets. But second, and this is the real kicker for democracy, is its anti-pluralism. Populists will say they're the only true voice of the people. And what does that lead to? Well, it often leads to attacks on minority rights, on independent judges, on a free press, basically all the essential checks and balances that make a democracy work.
So why do people buy into this? Why does it work so well? Well, populism really takes root where people feel like they've been left behind. Maybe it's economic, they've lost their job, their wages are stuck. Or maybe it's cultural, they're worried about immigration or losing their national identity. Populist leaders are smart. They tap right into those fears and promise to be the ones to protect the nation from all these scary global changes.
Okay, this all leads us to the absolute core theory of this lesson. This is a big one. A key tool you're going to want in your back pocket for the exam. It's called the globalization trilemma, and it's a brilliant way to understand the impossible choices that governments are facing right now.
This is a really foundational idea, so let's make sure we get it. The theory basically says a country can have any two of three things, but there's a catch. You can't have all three at once. It's like one of those pick two scenarios. There's always a trade-off, a fundamental conflict that every single country has to figure out. So let's break down these three pillars. What are the three things you have to choose from? First, you've got deep globalization. Think totally open markets, free flow of everything. Second is national sovereignty. That's just the power for a country to make its own decisions, its own rules. And third, you've got democratic politics, where the government actually does what the people want it to do. The whole problem, the whole tension, is that you just can't have all three of these firing on all cylinders at the same time. All right, so here's the first big clash. Let's say a country wants deep globalization. To do that, it has to play by international rules, on trade, on the environment, you name it. And that, right there, limits its own national sovereignty. But what if it says, nope, we want to make our own rules? Well, then it can't really be a full player in the global economy. See? You can't have it both ways.
And that brings us to the second big conflict. Imagine a democratic government. Its voters are demanding they protect a local factory, right? But protecting that factory might break an international trade deal. On the flip side, if that government commits to deep globalization, it has to follow those global rules, even if its own citizens are screaming no. So you see how deep economic integration can literally tie the hands of a democratically elected government? It limits their choices.
So what does this all mean in the real world for governments trying to juggle this trilemma? Well, it leads us to another really powerful concept, and you'll definitely want to remember this term for the exam. It's called the golden straitjacket.
The best way to think about this is as the real-world result of the trilemma. The jacket part is the set of super strict economic policies a country kind of has to wear to attract global money. Things like cutting spending and opening up trade. It's golden because, hey, it promises to make you rich, right? Prosperity. But it's a straitjacket because it locks you in. It severely limits what a government can do, which means it can't always respond to what its own people are democratically asking for.
Okay, before we do a quick recap, just a heads up, if you want a full summary of everything we've talked about, plus some practice tests to really nail this for your exam, you can find all of that over at gradeguru.nl.
All right, let's wrap this up. Time for a rapid-fire recap of the most important things you need to walk away with for your exam.
Okay, 4 critical ideas. Make sure you can define them, but more importantly, connect them. First, that old alliance between globalization and democracy. It's under serious strain because of populism. Second, populism itself is a reaction feeding on the economic and cultural fears that globalization creates. Third, the trilemma is the framework that explains the impossible choices governments face because of this. And finally, the golden straitjacket is what happens when a country chooses globalization. It limits democratic choice, which, guess what, feeds right back into that populist anger. See how it all connects?
And all of this leaves us with the big central question for the future, and a really great thought to keep in mind as you study. How can we fix this? Is it even possible to build a system of global rules that gives us all the good stuff from economic integration, but without forcing countries to give up genuine democratic control? That, right there, is the huge challenge we're facing.